Working on our 72 Buick Grand Sport here. It's got a 455 and a Rochester carburetor. It really does run good, but you know, for years. But came across some things working on a Quadrajet we got on our 72 442, and this thing, you know, I got a big cam and it's pulling about maybe only 6 inches of vacuum. But it runs very rich at idle, and throttle response is outstanding. I can smash the throttle to the floor and it just goes. But one thing along the way on the internet I stumbled across, I don't really remember where, but you can take a straw and put a mark on it. You can see how I've got it marked to, you know, go right along with that air vent. And when I start the car and the engine's running, this straw should drop down, because there's like a power piston in a Quadrajet that raises your primary metering rods up and down. Well, if that doesn't drop, and I also ran a very small screwdriver down in there, and I could see that the plunger does work, but the spring must be too strong on it, because when I start it, this should drop, which would make your idle much leaner with the metering rods down. But I did get a kit that has different springs in it, and I should be able to make some adjustments here, put lighter springs in there, and I'm hoping that improves the idle. And one thing that was handy too when I was working on here is having tool and die maker experience. I've been that over the years and many other things, but it's a tool and die maker's die light. And I used this little die light here. I could shine it right down inside that vent, and I could see what I needed to see in there. And actually, the things I have to push on are kind of close to that edge of the vent. But you could see them down in there if you can get a little light and see what be careful what you're pushing against down there. But some people may get this, I don't know, but phone home. If you ever saw the movie E.T. Okay, we got the piston assembly out. That's got the metering rods on it. Got it cleaned up with some Scotch-Brite, little WD-40. So I got the metering rod system ready to put back in. Now we're going to change out the spring that's in here. That is the spring that controls that valve going up and down. Lighter the spring, obviously the easier it's going to move. And we got our parts from quadrajetparts.com, and they've got a yellow spring I'm going to try. It's rated for really low engine vacuum. It's the lowest one they have. So I'm going to put that one in and start putting this back together here. Okay, we got that put back together now. Got the primary metering rods in there with the new spring and the piston assembly. And just be real careful putting these in, because very fine tips on there, and getting them down into the jets, primary jets, you can easily you know, bend those tips, so be very careful with that. Now we're going to put the gasket on. Oh yeah, and I've got a gasket here out of my old archives, man. Armstrong gasket. I wonder, this might be from 15 years ago. Boy, does it feel nice. Really nice quality. Some people complain that the new gaskets now seem to soak up the fuel in the float bowl and stuff like that. This seems to be not quite so porous as the new ones. So that'll be nice. Okay, our gasket's in there. Got to make sure it tucks around that accelerator. I shouldn't say, well, accelerator pump is here, but the primary jet system here is make sure that gasket's tucked in there just right. It's got a little slit area that you kind of push up and get underneath, and it's a definite way to tuck that in there and then make sure it all sits flat. You can't really see it right now, the lines are hidden, but there's like it's cut through, so this kind of can flap, gasket material can flap underneath that unit here that's holding the primary rods. Interesting that we found one of the enrichment tubes has actually come off the bottom of the air horn here. It was sitting down inside the carburetor, so we'll get that pressed back in. Glad I took this thing apart. Okay, top of the carburetor's back on. So there is a way to torque these down. There's 2 screws inside the air horn there. So you tighten up the one on this side. This is number 2. This is number 3. This is number 4. Number 5 up front. Number 6. Number 7. Number 8. And number 9. So I just kind of make my way around, just lightly snugging them. I might go around like 4 times, just lightly snugging them, and you'll notice they kind of loosen. But you don't want to over tighten them. You don't have to torque the heck out of them. Just make sure they're seated, and you know, with the checking them the 3rd time or so, you'll notice if any of them kind of settled in and they were actually slightly loose. So obviously you don't want anything loose, but you know, nice and snug. And you know, I go through them maybe 4 times, just making sure that none of them loosen up. Because sometimes when you tighten a screw close to the other one, yeah, the other one loosens a little bit because it draws the assembly down. And you know, good to triple check or more on these things. Yeah, the carburetor adjustments, she's definitely much happier. Definitely much less on the rich side when it's idling. Just runs crisper, down low and in the mid-range. Very happy. Got a big cam in here, so that's part of the issue. I'm running about 6 inches of vacuum only when it's at idle. A lot of overlap in the cam, so big help running that lighter spring in the primary you know, piston system in that carburetor. Real happy with the way that turned out. More to come as we go through the season here. Tweaks here and there, so take it easy.